everybody for being here this morning. We appreciate your time and we appreciate you being here a little bit early, not too early, but hopefully it's a good time for everybody. As I was just talking to myself and obviously not to you all, we are excited here at Wacif about our 2020 Ascend Capital Accelerator program. Initially kicked off the program back in 2017, and from there we've had 4 cohorts, and then actually our 5th cohort, which launched last year out of our Enterprising Women of Color Center, our Ascend Her program, actually was able to support specifically entrepreneurial women of color. And so we were excited about that. So now with our Ascend Capital Accelerator, we're back to our roots, so to speak. And we're just really opening it up to all entrepreneurs of color across the region here. And we are super excited. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit of background about the program and sort of going through sort of what the program is going to entail. And that'll be about 20-25 minutes or so. And then from there, we'll get into some Q&A. So if there's some specific questions that you want to ask and you're concerned that you might forget it, or you want to make sure that you put it out there, please do so. You can put that in the chat or in the Q&A. And then once again, hopefully, maybe by the time we get through the rest of the program, we'll answer that question. If not, Estinet will be here to assist me with answering those questions and sort of getting those things squared away. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get it started here. So just a little bit about today's agenda, a little bit of background about Wacif and our organization. We're going to share a little bit of the history of the accelerator program, give a kind of an overview of Ascend Thrive, also discuss sort of the timeline, how things will transpire in terms of application process, interview, and the actual program itself. And then we'll get into some Q&A at the end with any specific questions that you all might have that we may not have covered within today's presentation. So just a little bit about Wacif here. Our primary reason for existing in a lot of ways is really just about the whole idea of promoting equity and opportunity in underserved communities here in the Washington, D.C. area. We pretty much operate within 3 pillars: community wealth building, inclusive entrepreneurship, and equitable development. And so many levels, those things actually kind of work in tandem. Like one can't sort of really operate within the Wacif umbrella without the other. So we really look at sort of not only just the community we serve, but the services and resources that we provide as sort of an ecosystem. All of it kind of works together because our approach is really holistic here from Wacif in terms of how we engage entrepreneurs, how to sort of work with our partners, and just once again, how we sort of support the community. A quick 2021 at a glance, just some quick numbers to kind of show our impact here within the region. In 2021, we had $12.9 million deployed to our community and the entrepreneurs and business owners that we served. We served 40 plus industries. Just the number of spaces that we support are just really extensive here. 925 entrepreneurs total served, and just just over 6,000 jobs were created or retained full and part-time. So just really busy here in 2021 for all of us here at Wacif. The organization has been around for 34 years. We'll actually be celebrating our 35th year this year. And so we're really excited about that. So I think later on this year, we're sort of having something special for the community. Don't want to let the cat out the bag, but we definitely have some things going on here to celebrate our 35th anniversary coming up. So in terms of the spaces that we particularly focus on, one of them is definitely business financing. That's a cornerstone to Wacif in terms of how we support entrepreneurs and businesses here in the area. Some of our products are flexible loans, emergency relief grants, and also PP loans, which happen obviously because of the pandemic and everything related to COVID-19. We have advisory services, one-on-one small business coaching and consultations, which we help businesses anywhere from looking at marketing and strategy and development to sort of growth resources to if they need to tap into our resources, they're looking for an accountant or looking for some pro bono work. Once again, talking with our advisory team, allow business owners to get connected and sort of paired up with those type of resources that they may need. Also, we provide training. Our Ascend Cohort is one of those. And so it manifests in a number of different ways. Workshops is another way in which that takes place. And also we have a number of access to capital series that we sort of sponsor throughout the year to once again, getting folks understanding what our capital products are and sort of how our whole financing process sort of transpires. And of course, last but definitely not least, and almost the most important in a lot of ways for us here at WakeUp, just the community that we engage with, both from the clients that we serve to the partners that we work with, to once again, just our whole ecosystem of support that we have here within our stakeholders here at the WakeUp community. Just a little bit of context here for our Ascend Capital Accelerator program. One of the things that we're well aware of on a number of different levels is the idea of how to build generational wealth and sort of the lack of wealth within the community and within our households here, both in DC and across the country. So one of the things that we wanted to do here at WakeUp was how do we sort of begin to address this wealth gap through this whole idea of business ownership and business entrepreneurship. And so that's one of the things we really just wanted to focus. The gap in terms of, once again, that wealth creation is something that's been ongoing for years, if not decades and even generations. And so this is WakeUp's little corner of the world here in terms of that we're sort of sitting and positioning ourselves to be able to address those issues and those challenges. So one of the things, our beliefs, and this is definitely a cornerstone in terms of the Ascend Capital Accelerator program, is that the idea of how do we look at social capital, how do we look at knowledge capital, and then how do we sort of look at all of those things in conjunction with financial capital, and how do we sort of really look at those three entities and be deliberate and intentional about deploying those resources so that's much more catalytic. You know, how do we really sort of orient ourselves to be able to deploy these information, these resources, and sort of these support mechanisms so that's really has an impact on the communities that we serve and the business entrepreneurs that are looking to support. And so once again, the idea is that not just financing is going to be important, because of course it is, but how do we create those support mechanisms? That's a social capital component. And also the knowledge, right? What are the information pieces that business owners need? Do they need more information on accounting strategy? Do they need more information on marketing, understanding what the market landscape looks like? What are the resources that they need? You know, how do they get plugged into networks to allow them to get that information, be tapped into those resources that they can bring on to hire or consult with or be advised by? So once again, these three cornerstones of social capital, or knowledge capital, and financial capital really sort of position this ecosystem that we're developing in terms of resources that we can deploy to help our entrepreneurs be successful. And so sort of the philosophy in terms of how we sort of sit here is that for the past 10, 15 years, and probably a little bit more than that, the whole idea of, once again, out of Silicon Valley, you know, the whole accelerator program model has been in a lot of ways kind of built and designed around tech startups, right? And so here in Washington, DC, for the past handful of years, you almost can't walk 2 feet without there being some type of program, initiative, workshop, what have you, around startup culture, startup resources, startup concepts, and then how do we sort of support businesses that are in those early stages. And so we wanted to do with our Ascend Capital Accelerator, how do we sort of take this accelerator model and then provide it for businesses that are outside of, independent of the sort of tech startups. Of course, tech startups can definitely apply and be a part of the Ascend Capital Accelerator program, but how do we sort of really sort of look at some of these other businesses that are in need, whether it's government contracting, media companies, retail, restaurants, so on and so forth. So how do we sort of provide this sort of accelerated learning opportunity? This learning model sort of takes all these ideas of how do we sort of really concentrate resources, focus on building, supporting, and helping business owners to grow and develop. And so that's really sort of the underpinning sort of idea and the philosophy in terms of what Ascend Capital Accelerator is built on, and sort of how we look at it as to performing in terms of, once again, engagement and support of business owners and small business owners and entrepreneurs here within the DC, Maryland, and Virginia metropolitan area. So once again, as we kind of talked about earlier, I mentioned that in March 2017, we kind of successfully launched our first Ascend Capital Accelerator program. And we offered about 25 entrepreneurs of color and women of entrepreneurs the opportunity to strengthen their businesses. And so once again, this idea of how do we take this proven technology model of venture acceleration and begin to sort of apply it to this idea of everyday Main Street entrepreneurs. And so the DC ecosystem thought, our CEO at the time thought this was an opportunity to sort of really fill in that gap. So once again, that was sort of the whole approach and sort of the whole underlying philosophy and a strategy in terms of where's the niche that we sort of saw the opportunity to provide value within the business and entrepreneurial space here within the area, and sort of really provide those resources that can sort of speak to those needs. And so now, talking a little bit specific about our Ascend Thrive Cohort sort of edition. And so the whole idea is about this concept of how do we thrive during disruption, right? So we've been going through these past 2 years, maybe even 3 years to some degree, 2.5 years or so, in terms of how we're dealing with pandemic. So it's not just necessarily about the pandemic. Obviously, that's sort of the enormity of what we've been dealing with, but just this whole idea of disruption. Whether that could be disrupting the individual business owner because something tragic or unfortunate has happened, or if you're on a corridor where there happens to be traffic disruption because of different ways that the city is going through and upgrading and sort of improving things of that nature, traffic is disrupted. And so if an area has been transformed because of just these ongoing sort of construction projects, as an example, that too is disruption. It could be weather disruption, floods, rainstorms, snowstorms, all these different type of natural disasters. Climate change is a big conversation discussion point, right? So whether it's through the natural environment or the built environment, weather conditions, what have you, there's all these ideas of disruption. So our focus here is how do we sort of present and provide the resources that help businesses thrive independent of the idea of all this disruption that's happening and all these different flavors and all these different ways. So here's a program overview in terms of what our Ascend Capital Accelerator program sort of consists of. So typically it's weekly classes that are going to begin from May 4th to June 22nd. And we're basically have 8 virtual and in-person classes. So we're still sort of figuring that out. We're sort of taking a sort of thermometer and idea and sort of asking within the application to what extent are folks sort of comfortable or not comfortable with in-person classes. So we just don't want to say, hey, we're going to do all virtual or we're going to do all in person. We're obviously looking at a hybrid model, but we're definitely going to get some input from those who are interested to kind of get a sense of how folks are comfortable, once again, with being in person and being offline in addition to virtual. So we're definitely getting a sense of that as well. So also the entrepreneur feature with real example from WakeUp clients as well. And then also our capstone growth presentation is going to be like a 12-month action plan. So this is kind of like the overall sort of picture and overall model in terms of what's to be expected in terms of what the actual program consists of. We also have a component which we sort of have electives or sort of additional business areas of support. And those are sort of some offerings that are 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 Fridays during the 8-week period. And once again, I think one of the things that we've learned, the pandemic has taught us, is how to be agile and fluid. So a lot of these things are on the table. But once again, if it requires for us to adjust or sort of change, that is on the table as well. So one of the things we definitely want to emphasize is we definitely have a model, but once again, based off of feedback, we like to definitely, once again, get insight and surveying applicants like yourselves who are interested to, once again, get a real sense of what can be feasible, what makes sense, and once again, ultimately, how to make you all comfortable, and once again, position you all in a space and a position to be successful, and once again, really to prosper. And so in addition to that, after the 2 months of training, we actually have 10 months of post-training support, which we have a lot of resources and sort of a lot of programming that once again can support and be a part of that initial 2 months training timeframe. We also have some wraparound offerings. In addition to the class, the weekly trainings, we also have one-on-one expert office hours. Some of those things that we provide in terms of support resources to help business owners work through some of their challenges and some of the issues and questions they have is around legal expertise, commercial real estate brokers, bankers, e-commerce specialists, web designers, and those are just some of the options that we'll have. And then once again, if we sort of learn in real time that there's a demand or there's an interest in some other areas, once again, WakeUp has a whole slew of professionals that we have access to within our network that we can even call upon that might fall outside of the purview of what we might see here. And so as I mentioned, once again, that 10-month post-program support is also part of that, which could once again include some of these areas that you see here that we just sort of alluded to, or there might be some additional ways that we can support. Once again, it's kind of an ongoing learning environment. So as much as we definitely have a standard practice in place, there's also room for us to learn sort of on the fly, and also to sort of be agile in that way, which be able to allow us to implement some other expertise or resources that we might be emerging and we see as useful, based on, once again, off the interaction with the cohort and sort of learning some type of resources and orientation, or even some expertise that might make sense for us to bring into the fold. And also during that 10-month program support timeframe, we also have check-ins with the small business advisory team. Once again, where are you at, where are your challenges, where there's some gaps that we can fill, to once again just really make the experience as fruitful and beneficial as possible, and to just ultimately meet the needs of the businesses and the cohort members as they're going through the program. And then obviously opportunities to network. Like I said, we have at the present moment, I think we have about 60 plus Ascend graduates. And so any new Ascend cohort members will have the opportunity to obviously network with those past Ascend graduates, in addition to the other clients that we have within the WakeUp network and the WakeUp ecosystem here. So once again, definitely that's a big sell that we have here. Opportunity to network within our ecosystem, which we have a number of phenomenal businesses that have gone on and continue to do great things here in the metropolitan area. And so the underlying values of Ascend, obviously there's the operational component and sort of the business aspects of it, but there's some things that are a little bit bigger picture that really sort of drive in terms of our own personal beliefs about the work that we do, not just Ascend, but with WakeUp as an organization overall. So obviously, the long-term partnership is not just about immediate success. Obviously, we want to be able to impact the business, to be able to operate effectively in the moment, but also just the overall the long-term longevity of the business over the lifetime. So once again, it's not just about the immediate support, but as long as the business decides they want to operate, how we can continue to be a partner and a supporter, and once again, the success of your enterprise. We focus on not just the whole person, we focus on not just the business, but the whole person. So once again, the idea of a holistic approach is something that's extremely fundamental to how WakeUp operates. Yes, we want the business to thrive, we want to be successful, but if the business owner themselves aren't able to be healthy, well-being, mental wellness, all those things that are critically important for the success of the business, then the business can't go anywhere. So we are extensively and very adamant in terms of really focusing on the individual as well as the business. So that's something definitely that is high priority for us here at WakeUp. Trust and community building. Once again, if we can't sort of exemplify that we are an entity that can be trusted because we have really your success at the heart of our concerns and we're extremely care about that, then what's the point of that really? So a real point of sort of WakeUp work, all of the employees here and all of our staff members, how do we sort of build those trust values within the communities that we work with, the entrepreneurs that we serve, and the individuals that we interact with day to day. So that's really a huge cornerstone in terms of how we operate from our value sort of perspective. And obviously in a lot of ways, maybe not necessarily obviously, but for us it becomes obvious. But once again, we don't want to make sure that we continuously communicate this idea of being vulnerable. Right? Lots of times people are struggling, they're having challenges with, it could be personal, it could be professional, it could be business partners, whatever sort of support mechanisms that business owners may or may not have or may be not a part of, they're challenged with that, right? Or they might have some issues around understanding certain aspects of their business. And so we definitely work to sort of operate in a judgment-free zone, because once again, when it comes to money, when it comes to your own expertise, nobody wants to be saying, oh, you're not smart enough, or you're not resilient enough, or whatever the case may be. There's all these different challenges. So our huge importance for us is to create these spaces that are judgment-free, that are vulnerable, and you can come here and be yourself. Bring all your concerns, your anxieties, because you have to be able to get past those, right? In order for you to get to those objectives, to those goals that you're trying to reach. So that means bringing together, bringing to yourselves, bringing to the conversation all the things that you feel are prohibiting you from moving forward. And so once again, this is a space of definitely non-judgment, totally be vulnerable, open and free to be you. And once again, how do we sort of engage that space in a fruitful way to make you feel that you're honored, you're respected, you're seen, so that once again, you can flourish in your best and most, comprehensive self that can possibly be. So expectations for the cohort, for those that will be participating in the program, we definitely are expecting a commitment of up to 10 hours per week during the period for the workshops. And that's going to include class readings, technical assistance, maybe some homework on some level that comes from the professors and the trainers that are facilitating the workshops. Definitely attend all sessions and complete all required assignments. Some professors or some trainers, call them professors, but many of our trainers are actual business owners themselves. So it's not just necessarily getting about the theory, but they're practitioners as well. So a lot of this stuff is really going to be able to hit the challenges that business owners are going right square in the middle, sort of on the bullseye. So once again, requiring all assignments to be addressed and finished as a part of that as well. Creating a 12-month revenue and sales growth plan. So once again, business owners are trying to go from point A to point B. Are you trying to grow by including 3 more or 2 more employees? Or maybe you're just, as a solopreneur, if that happens to be the case, that you're trying to increase revenue by 2 or 3%, whatever it may be. What does that look like? And so part of the delivery on a program is to put together a 12-month revenue and sort of growth plan and begin to measure on how you can begin to do that. And so once again, the program is definitely designed and set up to assist with that approach and to assist with that accomplishments that we're looking to put forward for all entrepreneurs and business owners within the program to pursue. Track revenue goals and growth progress. So how do you sort of match where we want to go with sort of that month to month, with day to day, week to week, month to month sort of progress, and so how to measure that to ensure that those opportunities and once again your objectives are being met. Continue engagement with our advisors here at Wacif and also with their trainers throughout the whole 12-month program period. And so once again, that is definitely sort of the expectation and what is required in terms of really be able to be successful, really to take full opportunity, to take full advantage of the opportunity of the cohort program. Attending networking activities outside of classroom sessions as well. So one of the philosophies or sort of the underlying sort of orientations here at Ascend is that we work hard and we also play hard. So not only is there going to be opportunities, obviously, to build the business, but there's going to be those social opportunities as well to connect, network, kind of sort of just relax a bit and kind of have some social opportunities to kind of just connect. Because as we talked about earlier, that social capital component is very, very important to us. So that's definitely a part of sort of the DNA within the Ascend Capital Accelerator program. So some of the most important things, obviously, are our eligibility requirements. First, own a business with at least 2 years of operation. A business in operation for fewer than 2 years. Definitely, we will be considering those, but it's on a case-by-case basis. So once again, if you've been operating under 2 years, it's not definitely a no. But once again, we'll be measuring. There's a number of different criteria, which we'll probably be getting here just momentarily. But once again, the emphasis is priority will be given to those businesses who have been operating at a minimum of 2 years. Be registered and in good standing to operate a business here in Washington, D.C., Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Howard County, Arlington County, and or Alexandria. Businesses are outside of this. Once again, it's on a case-by-case basis, but these are the core areas historically where our businesses come from and sort of the areas that we are primarily sort of focusing on here within the program. Represent an independent, local, and minority-owned small business, and have at least $50 in annual sales. Oh, sorry, don't want to go past that. So once again, just looking at all these requirements, these are really sort of the core pieces that we look at as we sort of go through the application review process. If any business falls outside of any of these sort of criteria, once again, it's not going to be a definite no. But once again, it's going to be looking on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes business owners, we had a couple of situations in the past where business have been operating for maybe a year or so, but just their growth trajectory and sort of what they were explaining where their business is and where it's going was just such a strong story was told and shared that, we say, there's definitely space within the program for that type of business. So that's the other piece, which to give some emphasis on, which is sort of under-communicated in a lot of ways, is that there's a really huge opportunity for storytelling, right? So what is it that your business is going through? What is it that your business is, where is it going? Where does it come from? And so, once again, as a part of your own tools in terms of presenting your business, there's that storytelling component. So how do you really sort of communicate this compelling sort of idea about who you are, where you came from, what you're about? So that's something that also we take into consideration if you do meet the typical criteria, or even if you don't. So like I said, we really have this holistic approach. So once again, if you don't feel that you meet all of these criteria dead on the head, but you still feel you have a strong, compelling story, we definitely want to invite you to definitely apply. So here's the program timeline. Part of right here, we sort of from February to March 18th, sort of the applications will close March 8th, and then April 20th, we will be then making notifications for those who have been accepted in the program and also those who have not. As we mentioned earlier, the Ascend cohort will then start on May 4th, and then we'll go through June 22nd. As I mentioned that earlier, that 2-month time frame in terms of, once again, all of the classes, all the training will then take place. And so right around early July, and that specific date, we're still sort of working on those details, will be the cohort graduation party. That's the opportunity, once again, to celebrate the whole 2 months of trials and tribulations, learning, sharing, engaging, training, and all those great things that are going to transpire within the first 2 months of the program. And then once after the graduation party, then comes sort of maybe the hard part, so to speak, or the harder part. Like we talked about earlier, sort of that growth plan that you presented at the end of the 2 months training. So how do you begin to look at the implementation of that? So for the 10 months after the 2 months of training, which once again we talked about, it's a whole 12-month time frame, how do you sort of take this training and implement it into a business development support framework? And so once again, just here's the timeline: February 24th to March 18th, the application is live and online. March 10th, today, we had an information session in which we're sharing with you all the information, all the goods, all the background information, all the required necessary data points with respect to the program. March 28th through April 1st, we'll be reviewing and selection of candidates for interviews. And then April 4th through the 15th will be interview of the candidates. And then April 20th, right around that time, we might start a day before, a day afterwards. Some of these things can be a little bit fluid for a number of different reasons, but right around that time frame, more or less, we will start sending out notices for accepted and declined candidates. So that is sort of our presentation for today. As I mentioned earlier, we wanted about 20-25 minutes of some presentation, but we wanted to definitely allow any Q&A questions to be asked that we may not have covered during the portion of the presentation. So Essie, do we have any questions that we have here that might not have been addressed through the presentation?
Yes, we do. We have one question asking, do you offer any services for startups? I'm in the business formation stage.
In Wacif overall, we do. We definitely have a number of different workshops, service support sort of mechanisms and toolkits that we sort of tap into that we do help startups. For the Ascend, once again, as I mentioned earlier, the main focus in terms of criteria is really the 2 years of operation and the $50,000 minimum. Once again, if businesses do not fall within that purview, we will look at those businesses on a sort of an individual basis. So I don't want to say no, we don't look to support or help startups in that regard from the Ascend Capital Accelerator program sort of lens. So there is that. But in general, overall, from Wacif as a whole organization, we do provide support and services. So if, for example, let's say you're an early stage or startup business, and you say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. Maybe I'll learn something in the process, and you apply to the Ascend program and you don't get in, by all means, we are still ready, willing, and open, and still excited about providing the support that we can for early stage businesses. And you're more than happy and more than welcome to actually become an advisory client. And we can even share some information in terms of our Get Help page on our website, which then you sign up on that, submit an intake form, and from there, you can set up an appointment to have an advisory call. And so once again, that's for all businesses, independent if they're startup, early stage, growth stage businesses, or been operating for 15, 20 years and looking for specific resources of any kind. So definitely that is sort of to address the whole early stage startup business. So any other questions that we may not have answered that have come up?
We do have another question. We have a question asking, what is the typical cohort size?
Typical cohort, that is a great question. Typically, when we first started Ascend years back, I think our first cohort size was about 24. And so we sort of realized and discovered that that number was just to really sort of focus and build a type of program that really addressed the comprehensive and sort of really overall needs of businesses. We needed to go a bit smaller. So I think our next few cohorts after that, I think we capped it at about 15. So right now on the top end, we'll probably the most we'll be having is 15, but the lowest amount we have is 8. So anywhere between 8 and 15 entrepreneurs is our typical size of our cohort. And that number, whether it's 8, whether it's 10, whether it's 12, or it's 15, really kind of depends in terms of the applications and sort of what we're seeing. But that's typically our cohort numbers that that we sort of operate with. Last year, our Ascend Her was actually, I believe, 14 entrepreneurs. So once again, that's right there within our space between 8 to 15 entrepreneurs. Any other questions?
Yes, we do have other questions. How often are applications issued for this program? Will there be another session this year after the May time period?
The sessions, we have one information session, typically per cohort program, and it actually becomes available online. So if folks happen to miss this particular session, live session, or they want to go back and sort of review it, it will be on our, and I'm about 98% sure this is the case, it will be able to be seen on our YouTube page. So if any reason information was missed or you want to go back and review, this session is recorded and it will be available via our YouTube page. So we won't be doing another live information session, but everything that's covered here, once again, can be found on our recorded sessions on our YouTube channel. And we do have later on, we'll be having another Ascend Her program, and that program hasn't been defined, and we're still in the process of putting that together. So there will be another Ascend Her later this year. We'll be focused on once again women business owners. But our regular Ascend, the next one won't be happening until another one will be happening until 2023. So our traditional Ascend. So essentially, we have 2 Ascends a year at the moment. And so that, once again, we're changing, evolving as an organization. That could change in the future. But currently we have our Ascend and then our Ascend Her program. So those are 2 that are running on an annual basis. Any other questions, Kennedy?
Yes. Should I get selected into the program, what is the weekly time commitment?
The weekly time commitment, so at a minimum, there's going to be, each class is going to run about 3 hours. And so just on that alone, you're going to have to set aside just a time for the training sessions. Now, outside of that, depending on the homework and your own personal interest in the topic that was covered, or you feel that there's a place where you want to dedicate some more training or engagement, either from the office hours or what have you, anywhere up to 10 hours, we think is going to be a sufficient amount of time per week that you want to dedicate to all the efforts, training, and sort of just taking all the work in consideration around the Ascend Capital Accelerator program. So at a minimum 3 hours, obviously for the training sessions themselves, and then up to 10 hours for, once again, outside the classroom homework, research, getting prepared for upcoming classes, things of that nature.
We do have another question.
Okay.
What would be the ideal Ascend candidate?
That is another good question. And to be honest, there really isn't an ideal Ascend Capital Accelerator candidate. So when I say there's not an ideal in terms of we don't have any preference for any businesses, we don't have any preferences for individuals, we don't have any preferences for sort of your annual revenue. The ideal candidate is really, to really get to the crux of it, is someone who is communicating a genuine and really ambitious interest in growing your business. it's kind of a general sort of response, because we have so many different businesses that have participated over the years. We've had restaurants, we've had consulting firms, we've had janitorial services enterprises, we've had media companies, we've had contractors. It's just a diversity of businesses have participated in our program over the years. And so I think just maybe the one thread that goes through all the businesses is they're ambitious, they're highly interested in wanting to grow their businesses, they're really interested in community, and really they're looking to make an impact, both from the revenue generating and business services, but also how do they engage the community. Part of the emphasis and things that we're interested in is that, once again, it's not the end all be all, but to what extent have you hired or interested in hiring in folks in the local community for your jobs if you are growing a company? That becomes something that's of importance to us. Definitely creating job opportunities and growing the economy here within the area, but once again, hiring once again locally. We do have businesses that are based here, but then they operate beyond sort of the DMV borders areas here. So that's also something in terms of sort of how they sort of sit within the space. We have, a matter of fact, one of our past Ascend organizations or enterprises that went through a program, they're actually operating internationally now. They're actually a PR and marketing firm. But once again, their base is here in DC, and they do the majority of their hiring from here in DC. So that, in a way, is sort of one way to sort of look at it. What does an ideal or typical sort of Ascend candidate look like? Really just in terms of the energy, their ambition, and just really a genuine desire to want to grow the business and want to connect with like-minded business owners and like-minded individuals. So I think that's sort of, like I said, there's not anything specifically within type of business or demographic or thing of that nature, but the underlying piece, really what makes a good Ascend candidate is someone who can really communicate why they're interested in the program, and really how they show up holistically in terms of how we engage with them. Any other questions, Kennedy?
Yes, we do. Is this program open to businesses located in Virginia and Maryland as well?
Yes. The program is definitely open to all businesses that are in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. Now, so as an example, if a business were to send in an application anywhere from Richmond, that falls a bit outside of Richmond, Virginia. It falls a bit outside of our purview. But once again, we then measure that against the other candidates that may meet our criteria. And so once again, we don't want to say, well, you're way outside of our typical boundaries. And so, because once again, the project is hybrid, so there's a lot of it is virtual, but then also, once again, there's opportunity to connect socially. And if you're traveling 3-4 hours, that's another thing. Is it going to be worth your time? Is that really going to make sense to you as a participant? So those are the type of things we also consider as well, because yes, it is a virtual at the moment, and that could change, maybe starting later this year, even 2023. But once again, there is a communal component to this. And, once again, it's going to be much easier for someone to travel from Prince George's County or Alexandria or here in DC, once again, to connect socially. So that's also something to consider as well, depending on where you live in terms of the considerations about what's going to make sense for you in participating in the program. Any other questions?
Are class days and times established upfront, or are they decided by the cohort attendees?
Excellent question. So putting a program of this together requires us to coordinate with other business owners in terms of and other stakeholders. And so we try our best to sort of, create some opportunity for cohort members to mention their preferred times. And there actually is a segment in the application with asks for that. But one of the things that we are coordinating with other stakeholders to help make the program possible, and waiting till the month before, the 2 months before during the application process to try to lock them in would be extremely challenging. So we, based off of a lot of our past cohort experiences, we kind of have a sense of what is a good time for to sort of design and put together the training dates. But there is opportunity for, once again, to get some insights. And so if folks are saying, you know, a majority of applicants are saying Wednesday and Monday works, or Wednesday and Friday, what have you, then we kind of put that in consideration with the application process. And so if we have a group of 15 and all of them are saying they're available Friday, then we have 2 that's saying that they're not, then we'll say, well, the majority of these applicant pool is saying Friday works. And so we can share that with the applicants saying, will Friday be a challenge for you? And they say yes or no. They say, you know what, I would prefer a Monday or Tuesday, but I can make Friday work. So yeah, there's opportunities for some input, but in a lot of ways, we can't necessarily wait until all the applications in are reviewing to see what those applicants prefer, because that would just be too challenging in terms of from sort of landing our trainers and kind of get them oriented and working with their schedules, because they're moving around, traveling, and, you know, providing services to all kinds of folks outside of the Ascend Accelerator program at Wacif. So we try our best to try to take in considerations, but that's also the dynamic that we're working with as well. So to kind of give folks a little bit of understanding about how we're designing timeframes and sort of putting together sort of the whole, the monthly programs. Any other questions?
Yes. What information are you seeking for the application? Is there an opportunity for essay or a video to tell my story?
Yes, matter of fact, in the application, there's a narrative component, which kind of asks a lot of things in terms of, you know, what is your value proposition? What are your leadership challenges that you face? There's also, we do have an opportunity to submit a video. Matter of fact, once you submit the application, after that, in your email, there should be an email where it allows you to then record a video and submit that as well. Then also there is a section of the application where it says if there's any additional information that falls outside of the purview of the questions we ask, you know, so like describe your business, what's your value proposition, what are your leadership challenges, have you been impacted by COVID? For those who might have already seen it, we do have a space to share, you know, any additional information. This is an opportunity really to kind of share, you know, maybe challenges that you overcame as a business owner earlier on, or last month or last week, or what the case is. So that's the opportunity to give us more context about why you're a great candidate. So once again, as we talked about earlier, it's not just understanding the nature of the business, of course, the operational aspect of it, are you a good candidate, but talk about your story. So the more information that you share, the more compelling your story can become, and gives us much information to say that, oh, wow, they're really invested. They really told our story. And so one of the things I can definitely share as a sort of a piece of advice, that those who take to every opportunity on the application to put in information, I recommend that you fill it up. Because we've had applications in the past where that space that says, if there's any more information about us that you'd like to share that wasn't covered, please do so. And people leave it blank. So right there, you've kind of taken an opportunity to share your story in a much more deeper and comprehensive way. You kind of took that away from yourself. And there's other applicants who have filled that in. And so that kind of shows to us that you're willing to go that extra mile to add another paragraph or two or whatever it is to kind of describe who you are, what is an interesting story point or interesting factoid that would really be like, wow, you know, you can't capture that in the numbers, you can't capture that in the financial statements, you can't capture that in sort of the whole description about the business in a typical sense. And so again, there's an opportunity to do that. So that would be my recommendation. Any opportunity to fill out anything within the application where the opportunity to share information about who you are and your business, please do so. I think it's going to work out for you in terms of the overall process for the application. Any other questions?
One big question that everyone has been asking is there a cost for this program?
There is not a cost for this program. This is one of the things that we are really focused on and really interested in being able to provide is running a business is hard. I mean, I was a business owner myself before I came to WakeUp. I ran my own marketing strategy consultancy for just north of 12 years. And it is tough and it is challenging and it's rewarding. It's all those different things. And so one of the things we want to do is WakeUp being passionate about what they do, and myself and some of my colleagues who have ran businesses before, part of the ability to be successful is how do you sort of get into a network of opportunities and resources, right? You're already spending your time. You might have already hired a web designer or hire someone to do social media strategy for you, whatever the case is. But we want to provide us opportunities, and we are committed to business owners because we know how tough and challenging it is. So there is no cost to this program. There's some opportunities on the back end, once again, with some of the trainers that if you want to hire them on your own to get much more in-depth, much more involved, much more specific, detailed sort of engagement, that they're opening for that. And there's opportunities to do that if you'd like. But the program itself, the training and the 10-month support, the vast majority of that, there is no charge. There is no charge. But once again, we do want to mention that if you're interested in engaging some of the trainers, some of the resources outside of that sort of 12-month time frame, or you just like, hey, look here, I really know I need marketing support, and I'm going to need dedicated, very focused marketing over the next 6 months, in which I need 3 and 4 or 5 hours, or whatever the case may be. Yes, and there's definitely opportunity. You can set up those engagements outside of the program to your heart's desire. But the program itself and the things that we offer, we are not charging for that. Anything else?
Is there any grants or fellowship money associated with this participation?
No, there is not. There is not. In general, WakeUp has a number of different grant programs that are set up for specific industries, for specific purposes, and that's a whole different conversation that kind of falls outside the purview of Ascend. But just once again to share that WakeUp does operate in a very limited way for very particular industries, for very specific purposes, for a very particular amount of time with respect to the grants. But yeah, we're not running any grant opportunities specifically through Ascend. Anything else?
If I have a business partner, do they also need to join the classes as well?
They don't have to. If in the application you mentioned that it's a 2 or 3 person business, that is fine. And if it's up to you, if you want to sort of rotate folks, you could do that. I would probably recommend that if it is a multi-person business, multi-person firm, that you would probably dedicate one person to sort of the training and engagement. That way, the kind of that information is being consistently sort of deployed to that individual. So yeah, so we definitely have businesses which there's more than one person part of that company. But yeah, my recommendation would be, if that is the case, that definitely I think there should be one spokesperson or one representative or one individual that is probably a participant, and yeah, the point person for that program. Because yeah, there's also the part of it is just community building. And if we're having like, different persons from a company every week, that's gonna be a bit challenging in terms of building that relationship with the cohort. So my recommendation definitely is, if you're a multi-person company or multi-person enterprise, that there's one person who's primarily that person who's sort of representing the company in the training sessions. Any other questions?
Yes. Is the interview process more of a formality? What is the likeliness that I would get in?
There's definitely the application and interview definitely has a formal process. We have a whole scoring system and all the different weights. And once again, it's not a color by numbers. There's lots of deliberating and sometimes it just we have so many awesome candidates. It's really challenging. So that gets back to the point earlier, that every opportunity to share information about who you are as a business owner, please do so. Like I said, we've had applications where there's a portion that says, if there's any additional information that you can share, please do so. And folks leave it blank. And that's fine. You're absolutely, if you don't feel there's any additional information you've captured in everything before, that's fine. But those who take the opportunity to add that other information, that's going to give them another data point, once again, in terms of, sharing their story. And also there's a video component. We've had some applicants who did not share the video, and that's fine. But those who submit the video, once again, more real estate, more story, more experience for us to sort of listen and understand who you are, what you bring to the organization, and why you're interested in participating in Ascend. So yes, there's definitely a structured process. And once again, in general, there's no formula that we sort of work with in terms of who's good and who's bad. But once again, you meet the minimum requirements, and we sort of, once again, how well do you tell your story? How much do we feel that through your communication, through the application, through the videos, that you're committed, and also to the interviews? Well, if you get through the application process, the interviews also become a component of that as well. But have your story together. Really being able to tell a compelling story about why you're interested in the organization, and really showing that you're genuinely interested. Because some folks submit applications and just reading them and say, okay, they're kind of interested, but I'm not I'm not really feeling that that this is something that they're committed to and something that they're really, really going to be engaged in, and which is fine. You know, everything isn't for everybody. Some people like cupcakes, some people like cake, some people like water, some people like Kool-Aid, whatever it may be. And this might not be the program for you, and that's fine. That is okay. Maybe next time you'll be ready, or it'd be a better timing for you. So once the timing is also a thing as well. So those who don't get into the application doesn't mean anything. It just means that there was probably just a lot of applications. We had to make some tough decisions, and sometimes we can't get everyone into the program. So once again, if you don't make it this year, feel free to apply next time around. There's a program out of Goldman Sachs has a 1,000 business. I forget particularly what it's called, but one of our past Ascend graduates, they had applied to the program, I think 2 or 3 times, and they finally were able to get in. So, you know, once again, there's if you don't try. If you don't make it, try again. So once again, timing could be an issue, but definitely not getting into the program isn't any reflection about how good or bad a business is. It just means that, you know, we had some tough decisions to make, and we had to put one business versus another. But yeah, that's sort of how I sit in that, in the response to that question. We have about 1 more minute. We can go about 5 minutes over if there's some questions that definitely make sense to answer, but we want to stick to the hour, and we also want to make sure we're respectful of your time. So we can maybe take about 2 or 3 other questions, and then once again, we can definitely put in our communications, my email here. If you have any questions, feel free to email either myself, and then also we can put Estin at Reed, which is also working with us on this program, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that come through email. And then once again, or go back and listen to the video again, because listening to the questions, I think we've answered really a lot of the core issues here. But once again, I think we go about 5 more minutes here, maybe about 2 or 3 questions, and we'll go ahead and let you all have the rest of your day. Any other questions, Kennedy?
Yes, someone asked, would it be easier to joint venture or just to risk it with my story?
Joint venture. Read the question one more time, so I'm making sure I'm understanding that clearly.
Sure. It says, would it be easier to joint venture or to risk it with my story?
Well, okay, if I'm understanding, so what I'm understanding the question from this is that what's the risk of sort of entering into a joint venture? And I don't know if the time is specifically for applying for Ascend or just in general. Like anything else, you know, whenever you're going into a partnership or a joint venture, which is an individuals beyond yourself, it really becomes, you know, how well do you get along with those folks? You know, are there an alignment in terms of worldview? Is there complementary skill sets and sort of expertise? And really, it's like a relationship. You know, you have a friend of yours that, you know, you guys get together, you're cool. How do y'all get along? You know, and does the differences and similarities, do they sort of work in a way that benefits both you all? Some says I'm a creative person, the person I'm analytical, and both of those are required for businesses. So you're like, oh wow, we're in that regard sort of opposites attract. So yeah, in general, if your folks are looking to work in collaboration with, you know, a partner, what have you, you know, I think there's a lot of discussions and going back and forth and sort of, you know, discovering sort of how that balance could work between the 2 individuals. So that's sort of, you know, and then once again, how that sort of translates into how you tell that story in terms of why it made sense for these 2 individuals to come together to push a company or move forward with an idea or whatever, or what it may, or whatever it is that they're trying to do and going forward. Any other questions? I think we'll go with about 2 more here, and then we'll go ahead and let folks go for the rest of the afternoon.
Absolutely. So I do have 2 more questions, and I'll ask 2 in 1. Okay. Once we complete the program, if selected, will we have the opportunity to meet previous graduates and network? And also, do alumni continue to support each other in the program after the year?
Yeah, matter of fact, that's a great question. So yes, the answer is yes. Manfred, one of the things that we are actually working on very diligently here is how do we continue to build, expand, and bring much more sort of depth and breadth to our graduate sort of Ascend graduate participants. You know, how do we, once again, once you're out of the program, your business is still going forward, right? And so how do we continue to introduce opportunities for contracting, collaborative efforts, partnering, things of that nature. So yes, there is definitely, matter of fact, that is a core value that we share as being a part of the Ascend family, that you get access to and opportunities to interact, network, and build relationship with our past Ascend participants. And what was the second part of that, Kennedy? I had my answer in and I just forgot that quick.
You really hit the
Did I hit
nail on
it?
the
Did I hit
head.
it all? Okay, I want to
Yeah,
make sure.
just,
Okay.
talking about the different networking opportunities with alumni, and then also alumni supporting the program.
Okay, yeah, got it. The part that I wanted to share is that there's been numerous happenings that even before the end of the program, businesses, as they're sort of listening to each other tell a story, they sort of participate in classes, they see complementary sort of skill sets. And they'll begin to, maybe even the third or fourth session in, they're like, oh my gosh, based off of the work that they do, he's like, oh, you know what, we should talk. So that definitely happened. I can remember a number of conversations with our Ascend Her program last year, where they literally are seeing direct opportunities. So even before you graduate from the program, there's definitely, it's not something that would be unconceivable for folks to be partnering before the program even ends. And so that's part of what we really want to do. So that's the other part about, as we sort of put together the cohorts, is how do we sort of look at this idea of chemistry? Like folks are, are they have a communicating application that they're about building community, that they're heavily interested in networking and building relationships, and not just speaking to it, but we see in the overall narrative about how that has happened either historically, or you shared an example of how that transpired. So once again, going back to the question this one asked earlier, like what's an ideal candidate? Really, so how do you approach the sort of holistic idea of wellness, business development, being holistic, and not obviously generating revenue and building your capital, but once again, about how do you really sort of show up in a way that's benefit to yourself and benefit to others. And so once again, definitely generating revenue, being a profitable company is of a high importance. But once again, what we're also sort of curating for is how much are they engaged in terms of their own well-being, building relationships with others, and really having this bigger vision of how do they sort of contribute to sort of the bigger idea of society about a just economy, and once again, just wealth and well-being as a holistic sort of concept. So that's the other piece. And so when we put together the cohort, how do we sort of see potentially these cohort working together, because they sort of have a lens to which they understand business and themselves, social, and both the business sort of landscape, they sort of see that in a really holistic way. So that's something also to add, what sort of constitutes a really great candidate for our Ascend program. And then once again, your ability to communicate that within your application and also through the interview as well. So with that being the case, folks, we are at 12:06. I'm telling you, I honestly, like real talk, I would love to sit here and answer questions for another 45 minutes or an hour, because once again, we're super excited and super pumped that all of you all showed up. I'm looking here at our dashboard. We have 99 plus folks in attendance. That is super awesome. I know I'll speak for myself, and I think I can speak for WakeUp as well. We are super humbled that you all showed up today, that you're really interested in our program. So once again, if you need a review or sort of get back and listen to some of the questions, or you might feel that there an answer or wasn't addressed, or maybe you came in late, this video will be available via our YouTube page, and you can pull that up, listen to it, take notes, what have you. And once again, if there's anything that might have not been addressed, or there might have been something we didn't hit on, you're more than welcome to send us an email. And I think before the end, I'll probably drop my email in here as well. Feel free to reach out to us. And once again, we can get those questions answered. So I'm going to take a few minutes here to put my email in. And once again, thank you all so much for your time this afternoon. Hopefully you all were inspired to apply if you weren't already going to do so. And we're definitely excited about checking out all the applications coming in and having conversations, engagement with you all about potentially participating in our 2022 Capital Ascend Accelerator Program, Thrive Edition. Have a great day. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Please stay safe out there. And we're looking forward to having conversations with y'all here shortly in the future. Stay safe, y'all.